with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is December 26, 2017. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here in Eugene, Oregon. And I hope you had a pleasant holiday, at least with the people that you love and care about. Thank you for joining us. And I want to thank KEPW, our affiliate here in Eugene, Oregon, for carrying our show several times a week. We really do appreciate it. Please remember to let your friends and family know that they can only watch us online. They can't go to their radio dial, but they can't, unless they have Cyrus, they probably could, because then they can go to TuneIn Radio. But you can go to UCY.TV, and that's the whole name of the station. It's not .org.com, it's .tv, UCY.TV, and /AOF. So thanks for joining us. We had scheduled on this morning Erika Dugan, who is the fracking victim from Oklahoma, whose basically family was really harmed by fracking. Her children are very sick. She had an emergency this morning, couldn't get in touch with us this morning, but so she will be back on with us. If she's able to, she'll give us a call. We're not sure if that's going to happen, so I'm just going to proceed forward. She really has filed her own lawsuit. This is basically what's happened to her is she's been on several times explaining what happened to her family physically, but now she's engaged. She has filed a lawsuit, and one of their primary lawsuits that they're leaning on is this lawsuit that's been filed by ourchildrentrust.org. And that's those kids here in Eugene, Oregon who have sued the federal government for the being exposed to climate change and our government doing nothing. And that case has been proceeding forward. And it's been a very interesting thing because since the Trump administration came in, they have pushed back. They were supposed to go to trial December 17th, and now it's been pushed back. So let me read to you some of the basis of this lawsuit so you can understand what I'm talking about instead of me just reinterpreting it. I've gone directly to their website, ourchildrentrust.org. And the case is called Juliana versus U.S. Climate Lawsuit. Youth filed constitutional climate lawsuit called Juliana versus U.S. against the U.S. government and the U.S. District Court for the District of Oregon in 2015. Earth Guardians is also an organizational plaintiff in the case. Their complaint asserts that through the government, pardon me, let me take my glasses off so I can read properly. Their complaint asserts that through the government's assertive actions that cause climate change, it has violated the youngest generation's constitutional right to life, liberty, and property, as well as failed to protect essential public trust resources. The fossil fuel industry initially intervened in the case as defendants, joining the U.S. government in trying to have the case dismissed. In April 2016, the U.S. Magistrate Judge Thomas Coffin, C-O-F-F-I-N, Coffin, recommended denial of both motions to dismiss. U.S. District Court Judge Ann Aiken upheld Judge Coffin's recommendation with the issuance of an historic November 10, 2016 opinion and order denying the motions. When the defendants sought an interlocutory appeal of that order, Judge Aiken denied their motions in June 2017. In June 2017, Judge Coffin issued an order releasing the fossil fuel industry defendants from the case and setting a trial date for February 5, 2018 before Judge Aiken in the U.S. District Court of Oregon in Eugene, Oregon. So that's coming up. I'm pretty excited about that right here in Eugene. In July 2017, the 9th District Court of Appeals requested attorneys for youth plaintiffs submitted a response to the government's petition for a writ of mandamus and invited the district court to respond as well. The district court responded via letter, and the youth plaintiffs filed their answer. Further, 8 amicus briefs were filed in the 9th Court in support of the youth plaintiff. Pursuant to its order, a 3-judge panel in the 9th Circuit made up of Chief Justice Sidney Thomas and Circuit Justices Alex Kolczynski and Marcia Barzon, B-A-R-Z-O-N, heard oral arguments on December 11, 2017. Youth plaintiffs, now 10 through 21, and their attorneys look forward to the panel decision. Eric Grant, representing the Trump administration and the U.S. government, argued that the case be dismissed. There's videos that you can watch here that they have up on their website. So I'm going to go to the other parts of this, and I thought it might be interesting. I don't know how wordy it is, to be honest. I just pulled this up when Erika sent me a message that she was unable to connect with me this morning. But I thought I'd just proceed with this. This is the actual lawsuit. It's quite a long thing. It's 91 pages long. Let's see how long the initial introduction is. Jurisdiction, venue, plaintiffs. I don't think it'll actually... Let's skip to page 51. This is very interesting. Well, let's just read through the first introduction. This is what the lawsuit claims. This is the lawsuit originally filed in the district court. Let's see. It is filed by Julia Olson, Wild Earth Advocates, Joseph W. Kotchett, Philip Gregory, Paul McCloskey, Kotchett, Peter, and McCarthy, and Daniel Calpern, law offices of Daniel M. Calpern. And it was filed case number 615CV01517-TC. And it is first amended complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. So that's who this is. This is very interesting. Let's see who they are suing. The plaintiffs. These are the people that are filing the lawsuit. Kelsey, Cascadia Rose, Juliana, Sokotel, Tomathea, Alexander Loznak, Jacob Leibel, B. Zealand, M. Avery, V. Sahara, Kieran, Isaac Oman, Tia Marie Hatton, V. Isaac, V. Miko, H. Hazel, K. Sophie. I guess they've put initials on the kids' names because they want to protect their privacy because they're youth. B. Jamie, Z. Journey, B. Victoria, B. Nathaniel, P. Aji, D. Levi, F. Jaden, V. Nicholas, Earth Guardians, and Future Generations. These are the plaintiffs. Wow. United States of America, Barack Obama in his official capacity as President of the United States. The Office of the President of the United States, Christy Goldfuss in her official capacity as Director of Council on Environmental Quality, gone now. Sean Donovan in his official capacity as Director of Management and Budget, gone now. Dr. Holdren in his official capacity of Director of the Office of Science and Technology, the United States Department of Energy, Dr. Ernest Moniz in his official capacity as Secretary of Energy, the United States Department of the Interior, Sally Jewell in her official capacity as Secretary of the Interior, the United States Department of Transportation, Anthony Fox in his official capacity as Secretary of Transportation. That person is now Mitch McConnell's wife. The United States Department of Agriculture, Thomas J. Vilsack in his official capacity of Secretary of Agriculture. The United States Department of Commerce, Penny Pritzker in her official capacity of Secretary of Commerce. That is now Wilbur Ross, who, by the way, is in a shipping business with Vladimir Putin's son-in-law. The United States Department of Defense, Ashton Carter, who I think Ashton Carter, I don't know, I won't say anything about him, in his official capacity as Secretary of Defense. The United States Department of State, John Kerry in his official capacity as Secretary of State. As we know, that's Rex Tillerson. And the United States Department of EPA, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, Gina McCarthy, who is now Doofus, I forget his name, in her official capacity as administrator of the EPA. What's that guy's name? Rick Perry, yeah. Mr. Oops, you guys remember him. Okay, so I am just going to read like the first little wee bit of this so we can understand what this case is about, but this is a pretty monumental case. What's our bet that they're going to get thrown out of court, that the fossil fuel industry is going to win on this one? As they're spraying us with chemtrails and spewing us with radioactivity, do you think that any judge in this land, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm Miss Cynical now. I did, after all, have on a guest last week or so who told us that we have like 30 years left. So I don't know. I got a lot of pushback on that one too, folks. People were kind of shocked. I was shocked. That was my initial response. Let's get into this. Introduction. For over 50 years, the United States has known that carbon dioxide, CO2, pollution from burning fossil fuel was causing global warming and dangerous climate change, and that continuing to burn fossil fuels would destabilize the climate system on which the present and future generations of our nations depend for their well-being and survival. Defendants also knew the harmful impacts of their actions would significantly endanger plaintiffs, with the damage persisting for millennia. Despite this knowledge, the defendants continued their policies and practices of allowing the exploitation of fossil fuels. Specifically, Department of Energy has approved the export of liquefied natural gas from the Jordan Cove LNG terminal in Coos Bay, Oregon. This export terminal will be the largest projected source of CO2 emissions in Oregon and will significantly increase the harm that defendants' actions are causing to the plaintiffs. Defendants have long-standing knowledge of cumulative danger in their aggregate actions are causing plaintiffs. The Jordan Cove project enhances the cumulative danger caused by defendants' affirmative aggregate actions. Hang on just one second. Sorry about that, folks. Number 2, in 1965, White House report on restoring the quality of our environment, for example, the President's Science Advisory Committee stated that, quote, the The land, water, and air living things of the United States are a heritage for the whole nation. They need to be protected for the benefit of all Americans, both now and in the future. The continued strength and welfare of our nation depend on the quantity and quality of our resources and the quality of the environment in which our people live, unquote. Number 3, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, in 1990 and the Congressional Office of Technology Assessment in 1991 prepared plans to significantly reduce our nation's CO2 emissions, stop global warming, and stabilize the climate system for the benefit of present and future generations. Both the EPA's 1990 plan, quote, policy options for stabilizing global climate, unquote, and the OTA's 1991 plan, quote, changing by degrees steps to reduce greenhouse gases, unquote, were prepared at the request of and submitted to Congress. Despite the imminent dangers identified in both the EPA's 1990 plan and the OTA's 1991 plan, defendants never implemented either plan. Number 4, since 1990, defendants have known that CO2 levels in the atmosphere must be stabilized at or below 350 parts per million ppm in order to protect our nation's climate system, and that a swift transition away from fossil fuel was necessary. 25 years later, today's best science confirms that 350 ppm is the maximum safe level of atmospheric CO2 required to restore a stable climate system. Number 5, defendants have for decades ignored experts they commissioned to evaluate the danger of our nation, as well as their own plans for stopping the dangerous destabilization of the climate system. Specifically, defendants have known of the unusually dangerous risks of harm to human life, liberty, and property that would be caused by continued fossil fuel burning. Instead, defendants have willfully ignored this impending harm. By their exercise of sovereign authority over our nation's atmosphere and fossil fuel resources, they permitted, encouraged, and otherwise enabled continued exploitation, production, and combustion of fossil fuels. And so, by and through their aggregate actions and omissions, defendants deliberately allowed atmospheric CO2 concentrations to escalate to levels unprecedented in human history, resulting in a dangerous, destabilizing climate system for our country and these plaintiffs. Number 6, the 1965 report and the 1990 and 91 plans are only examples of the extensive knowledge defendants have had about the dangers they cause to present and future generations, including plaintiffs. Since 1965, numerous other studies and reports have also informed defendants of the significant harms that would be caused if defendants did not reduce reliance on carbon-intense energy from fossil fuels and rapidly transition to carbon-free energy. These studies and reports concluded that continued fossil fuel dependency would drive the atmospheric concentrations of CO2 to dangerous levels that would destabilize the climate system. 7. Yet rather than implement a rational course of effective action to phase out carbon pollution, defendants have continued to permit, authorize, and subsidize fossil fuel extraction, development, consumption, and exportation, activities producing enormous quantities of CO2 emissions that have substantially caused or substantially contributed to the increase of the atmospheric concentration of CO2. Through its policies and practices, the federal government bears a high degree of responsibility than any other individual, entity, or country for exposing plaintiffs to the dangerous atmospheric CO2 concentrations. In fact, the United States is responsible for more than a quarter of the global historic cumulative CO2 emissions. Number 8. The present level of CO2 and its warming, both realized and latent, are already in the danger zone. Defendants have acted with deliberate indifference to the peril they knowingly create. As a result, defendants have infringed on plaintiffs' fundamental constitutional right to life, liberty, and property. Defendants' acts also discriminate against these young citizens who will disproportionately experience the destabilized climate system in our country. Number 9. By and through natural gas imports and exports, the federal government and the Department of Energy are further enhancing the dangerous climate situation without due process and in violation of plaintiffs' right to equal protection. As noted above, the Jordan Cove LNG terminal in Coos Bay, Oregon, is the sole LNG export terminal in the Northwest and Oregon's largest projected source of CO2 emissions. The Department of Energy's approval of LNG exports from the Jordan Cove LNG terminal heightens the danger to plaintiffs that defendants' actions in the aggregate have created. This result is an unconstitutional violation of plaintiffs' fundamental rights. Let me grab a wee bit of water. Hold on. Thank you. Number 10. Plaintiffs are especially vulnerable to the dangerous situation that defendants have substantially caused. This court is plaintiffs' last resort to ensure their reasonable safety and that of our posterity. Let me read that again. This court is plaintiffs' last resort to ensure their reasonable safety and that of our posterity from the harm perpetrated by defendants. There is an extremely limited amount of time to preserve a habitable climate for our country. Otherwise, the harming of our nation will become locked in or rendered increasingly severe. Recent scientific studies conclude that our country is now in a period of, quote, carbon overshoot, unquote, with early consequences that are already threatening and that will, in the short term, rise to unbearable unless the defendants take immediate action to rapidly abate fossil fuel emissions and restore energy balance at a lower atmospheric CO2 concentration. I'm finding it hard not to laugh, you guys. They just signed the tax scam, or what I call the Kill the New Deal Act last week, which their big take on that was not saving taxes, giving anybody a tax break. It was about drill, baby, drill. They are opening up ANWR. They snuck it into the bill, and that's why they needed to sign it in 2017, not 2018, so they could start drilling ANWR this week. After this week, I guarantee you the drills are already lined up there. Let's get back to this. Number 11. The current policies, plans, and practices of the federal government will not achieve even a proportionate share of the fossil fuel emission reductions that must occur within this century. To the contrary, defendants' policies, plans, and practices permit, authorize, and subsidize fossil fuel exploitation and consumption, and thus press our climate system further toward irretrievable impacts. A key instance is the government's approval of LNG exports from the Jordan Cove LNG terminal. If defendants continue to promote such development and further delay rapid systematic annual emissions reductions, they will ensure a far less hospitable climate system with far-reaching damage to our nation and plaintiffs alike. Number 12, this court should order defendants to cease their permitting, authorizing, and subsidizing of fossil fuels and instead move swiftly to phase out CO2 emissions as well as take such other action as necessary to ensure the atmospheric CO2 is no more concentrated than 350 ppm by 2100. This includes to develop a national plan to restore Earth's energy balance and to implement that national plan so as to stabilize the climate system. Plaintiffs come before this court to secure this fundamental right under the Constitution before it is too late. New subtitle, Jurisdiction and Venue. Number 13. This action was brought pursuant to the United States Constitution. It is authorized by Article 3, Section 2, which extends the federal judicial power to all cases arising in equity under the Constitution. Quote, the identification and protection of fundamental rights is an enduring part of the judicial system to interpret the Constitution, unquote. Oberg, Fell, and Hodges, 576 U.S., slip up at 10, 2015. That's all legalese citing the case, folks. This grant of equitable jurisdiction requires Article 3 courts, this grant of equitable jurisdiction requires Article 3 courts to apply the underlying principles of the Constitution to new circumstances unforeseen by the framers, such as the irreversible destruction of our natural heritage of our whole nation. An actual controversy has arisen and exists between plaintiffs and defendants because defendants have placed plaintiffs in a dangerous situation, continue to infringe upon plaintiffs' constitutional rights, and have abrogated their duty of care to ensure plaintiffs' reasonable safety, among other violations of law. Plaintiffs have no adequate remedy at law to redress the harm herein, and are of a continued nature and which, if unresolved, will be irreversible. Number 14. This court has jurisdiction pursuant to 28 U.S.C. Section 1331, federal question, 28 U.S.C. Section 2201, creation of remedy, and 28 U.S.C. Section 2202, further relief, as this action arises under the laws of the United States. Number 15. Venue lies in this judicial district by virtue of 28 U.S.C. Section 1391E. The majority of youth plaintiffs, as herein defined, reside in this judicial district. Some defendants have offices in this judicial district, and the events, omissions, and harms giving rise to these claims herein arise in substantial part in this judicial district. Pursuant to Local Rule 3-2, divisional venue lies in the Eugene Division because the largest number of youth plaintiffs reside in this division in the judicial district, and events, omissions, and harms giving rise to the claims herein arise in substantial parts of this division of the judicial district. We're almost done, folks. Plaintiffs, new subtitle, Plaintiffs, number 16. Plaintiff Kelsey Castadia Rose Juliana is a citizen of the U.S. and a resident of Eugene, Oregon. Kelsey is 19 years old and was born and raised in Oregon, the state where she hopes to work, grow food, recreate, have a family, and raise children. During the fall of 2014, Kelsey walked 1,600 miles from Nebraska to Washington, D.C. in the Great March for Climate Action to raise an awareness about the climate crisis. Kelsey is harmed by the defendant's actions and inactions regarding carbon pollution and the resulting climate destabilization and ocean acidification. Specifically, defendant's actions have caused damage to and continue to threaten the resources on which she relies for her survival and well-being. Kelsey depends on the fresh water of Oregon for drinking, hygiene, and recreation. She drinks the fresh water that flows from the McKenzie River and drinks from the springs and the Oregon Cascades on hiking, canoeing, and backpacking trip. Wow. She also depends on the marine and estuarian waters of Oregon as a food source and a place of recreation and vacationing. Kelsey spends time along the Oregon coast in places like Yachats and Florence and enjoys playing on the beach, tide pooling, and observing unique marine animals, fastly disappearing because of Fukushima, which is not mentioned in this lawsuit, folks. An important part of Kelsey's diet includes fish that comes from the marine water and freshwater rivers, including salmon, cod, tuna, clams, mussels, and crabs. Oh my God, all that stuff is highly radioactive. Ooh, I can't wait to have a conversation with these folks. Kelsey also depends upon food grown in Oregon by both small farmers in the Willamette family and by her family in their garden. Number 17. The current and projected drought and lack of snow caused by defendants are already harming all of the places Kelsey enjoys visiting, as well as her drinking water and her food sources, including wild salmon. During the summer of 2015, record-setting low heat and low water levels killed salmon in Oregon rivers. In the coming decades, Kelsey will suffer even greater harm from the impacts of ocean acidification and rising sea levels on the marine life she eats for sustenance, and on the beaches, tide pools, and other places she visits along the Oregon coast. I'm going to get through this before I comment because my brain is just swimming away right now. Number 18. In addition to coastal recreation, Kelsey enjoys shoe snowing, cross-country skiing, and snow camping. Warmer winters and declining snowpack make it harder for her to enjoy these activities. Kelsey also enjoys rafting, swimming in the rivers, snorkeling on the rivers, canoeing on lakes, hiking, rock climbing, and backpacking in warmer seasons. Increasing summer temperatures and the resulting algal blooms in the lakes Kelsey visits harms her ability to enjoy these activities and prevent her from drinking the water. Intense wildfires, which also threaten Kelsey's ability to enjoy summer activities. Kelsey has had to abandon camping trips because of nearby wildfires. Number 19. Defendants have caused psychological and emotional harm to Kelsey as a result of her fear of climate change, her knowledge of the impacts that will occur in her lifetime, and her knowledge that defendants are continuing to cause harm that threaten her life and well-being. As a result of the acts and omissions of defendants, Kelsey believes that she will not be able to continue to do all the things described in this complaint for her life, health, and enjoyment, nor will she one day be able to share those experiences with her children. Number 20. Wonder what is this? How much farther have we got to go? Oh my gosh. Let's see. This goes on. And it basically is going on to talk about how this harms every single one of the defendants, all those names of all those kids. Talks about them being able to see plants. They can't be in the water. And I have to say, it kind of makes me sick that none of this is ever included with radioactivity. Not one bit of it. It's only about the fossil fuel industry. So I'm going to contact these people. I am not going to make you guys suffer listening to the rest of this complaint. It goes on. I was just trying to read the introduction, but boy, they're going to make the defendants work for their thing. This is why the Trump administration they were supposed to meet December 17th, and the Trump administration asked for it to be pushed back. So now it's going to be met February 5th, I think it said, in Eugene, Oregon. And this is actually quite an interesting case, because if this case passes, it will open up the door for many cases. And in fact, that is the reason that Erika Dugan wanted me to read this and talk about it. She had planned on being on the show with me and having a conversation with me because Erika Dugan has filed her own lawsuit case. Let me see if I can find the number. Against the fracking industry because of the harm it has caused her. And in fact, her son is now being denied his health care because she has filed this lawsuit. It is, let me see, district case number. I'll put my glasses back on. Let me take them off. It's a pro se case number D0KW 517CV001 221001. Maybe that's DOKW. Docket number. She filed it under a RICO complaint in the Western District Federal Court, U.S. District Judge. And it's up for the judge has to have it assigned. It has not been assigned yet to a specific judge. But in the meantime, her son's insurance company is refusing to pay for his medicine. Her doctor is refusing to see them. She's having to travel 50, 60 miles away just to get medicine that her son relies on. And our Congress just passed a law opening up Anwar. They're going to be drill baby up in Alaska right now. So we'll see how this case goes. It'll be interesting to see if these judges are going to be impartial. My intuition tells me the case is going to get thrown out because A, Anwar is going on. That would mean they'd have to stop drilling in Anwar. And B, if they grant these defendants any type of acquiescence, if they grant in favor of the plaintiffs in this case, that will open up the door for a lot of people, like people who have been harmed by the nuclear industry, which is all of us. We're all being harmed by the nuclear industry. All that fish, the thing that got me off track here was her saying she eats fish, salmon, tuna, cod. We know for a fact that 100% of the tuna, which is the fish they tested, because they're big, and I think they tested them, when I think about it, because they're big, because they were hoping that very few of them would have a greater chance of less radioactivity, which in fact, they all tested positive for radioactivity. So now they just stopped testing. They solved that problem. Let's just don't look. Kind of like we're taking people to Fukushima, Japan, so we can convince you that it's just not that harmful. And don't mind those kids dying of cancer. It's not caused by the nuclear power facility still spewing out radioactivity everywhere. Don't mind us. I mean, imagine if these people actually win this case. That would be actually something totally amazing. So we've got a lot going on right now, and we will see what happens. This year of 2018 is going to be a big year. This was a weird thing that happened over Christmas for me, you guys. I met with a distant relative who is kind of a seer, a person who sees things. His hands were shaking. His palms got all sweaty when we started talking about. So I was kind of being sort of flippant, right? So, well, what do you see for 2018? He got all nervous and shaky. He's like, I just hear a big boom. I'm like, what do you mean a big boom? Like a nuclear bomb? He's like, no, Yellowstone. I'm like, ooh. That would be really bad. That will change everything. And he said he doesn't believe that we're going to ever see Christmas again the way it's been. I'm like, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, he goes, I don't have those answers. I just know it's not going to be the same. So I'm like, things that make you go hum. So if anybody wants to give us a call, I'm unexpectedly doing this show solo. So the phone number is 718-717-8106 if anyone wants to give us a call. And we can talk about anything that you want. in keeping with what Erika wanted to talk about, I thought I'd read from this Children's Trust. The trial date is coming up February 5th, which now I'm excited about because I will not be in school. I'm not going to school this next term, so I will have a lot more time and I will be able to actually go to that hearing if it's a public hearing. So I'm going to be contacting our Children's Trust and see if they would be willing to come on our show and give this some exposure, because we are seriously under attack by Trader Trump's administration. I mean, them sneaking in the drill baby drill, the Anwar thing. In retrospect, I think that this bill had really very little. Well, I guess it was a twofer for them. They got what they wanted. They killed the New Deal. They've given the ultra-rich, super big tax cuts. And for those of you out there thinking that this is going to be a good deal for you, think again, folks. Part of the reason, and I have never been an Obamacare supporter, I actually pay the penalty, which frankly is very low. It's not that much, and if you don't want to pay it, there's no collection activity that forces it. But interestingly enough, they killed the whole entire mandate. But if you had paid the mandate the way the law was currently written, this is why they killed it for 2018. If you paid the mandate in 2018 and you refused to get insurance, you were automatically entitled to get Medicare. It was a backdoor into socialized medicine. Once people realized that if you didn't pay the insurance and you just kept paying the penalty, you'd get Medicare for all. So the Republicans conveniently killed it because they are doing nothing but seeing us as assets on a balance sheet. Once again, this is kind of a common theme on my show when I talk to people. We are definitely assets on a balance sheet to these people. And if we want to get off the balance sheet, we have to get off our rear ends. We have to get in the streets. We have to contact people. We have to be relentless. And we have to make it so uncomfortable that these cowards in Congress who are denying our Constitution will start upholding it and start looking at us. So hold on. Here's a call. Oh, yeah, here's Erika. Let me add her to the call. Good morning. Good morning, Erika. This is Lonnie Clark. We're on the air. Hello? Maybe it'll take a minute. Hello? Erika? Well, all right. Erika?
Yeah.
Yay, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you calling in. That was really awesome. Thanks. I was about to go on a rant about us having to get off of our rear ends and get active. I just finished reading the intro to our Children's Trust on that legal fight that's going on climate change here. And I was just reading the introduction, and I decided to not read the complaint of every single one of the complainants, I guess what they call them, plaintiffs. So thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. Just to remind our listeners, Erika Dugan is actually she was a stay-at-home mom. She was a trained journalist by trade who became a parent and found her family sick from fracking, and it has really enveloped her life. And she has filed a lawsuit. So thank you, Erika, for joining us. We have just about 15 minutes left on the show. We'll have to have you back so we can have the full hour.
Sure. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a summary of where your case is at and what you're doing?
Our case is still in federal court. They haven't, found a reason to not have us there yet, so that's a good thing. But the bad thing is that the judges said how we had to file it was pro se because...
What does that mean, pro se?
Pro se means you're basically your own representative. You don't have an attorney.
Okay.
And the judge does not like that for our minor child. The judge has used, cited other cases, which when I looked them up, they're custody cases. So I'm not sure how it relates to us because we're a family that has no custody issues. And but he is holding his order that unless we have an attorney to represent all of us, or just to at least represent her now, we cannot proceed with her, which has been socially and emotionally a problem for our family because she was exposed too. She has been very sick too. She is the one that almost died in September. And so this is, a problem for us, and we did disclose that back to him, but he does still hold his order. So in the meantime, we have sought representation, and we are working on that. And it may be that we can bring her back in, or she will have to file her own suit separately with representation. But
did the Our Children's Trust help you?
I don't know how that might have helped me at all. I don't know.
No, I mean that organization. Did you contact them to see if they had an attorney that would represent you?
No, I have not contacted them. I really feel like it needs to be connected to someone I know and trust, because our experience in the past with an attorney was basically someone came in when our first attorney that we went with, when we were going to pursue just the regular tort claim, was referred to us by a government official. And I'll just, leave it at that. But
yeah, we know what happened to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that attorney, it did not work out to help and be our benefit. So we really feel like whoever it is we end up hooked up with has to have some sort of tie to us that we know and trust, and would always look out for our best interest. As we know, the law is supposed to work that way, but it has not been our experience that it would work that way. Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still connected. Well, that's a pretty big journey. When do you have any idea when you'll be going to court?
We still don't have a date. We're working on, the regular dismissals that would come in from the other parties. And I'm not telling you anything that anyone can pull up our case and look at.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, so you guys are representing yourselves in court.
At this time, yes. And we know how that's not the best place to be, but yes, at this time we are.
Well, you pretty much don't have a choice, because especially where you live in Oklahoma, there's probably not very many attorneys who will actually risk their career to challenge the fracking industry. That's for sure, because that's essentially what they'd be doing.
Yeah, it is a part of that. Our case is RICO. It is racketeering influence, and there were health racketeering items. They're called predicate acts that happened long before we knew anything about the exposure. And that's kind of what we'll be debating here now. Is it's not just about that. Maybe that's the underlying thing behind all of it, and that was hidden from us, and our communities didn't know that, as other communities have found out. There's the town of Crestwood had a similar situation, Crestwood, Illinois. There's similar situations in Michigan that are maybe more publicized than that. But these are similar problems that have been happening where there's problems with the infrastructure, there's problems with the water, and taking less costly means to fix them and not disclosing things. That's been an unfortunate trend that has affected people. And what we're most interested in is how the criminality was able to go on and how it continues to go on. Even though we've filed summons and we're before the court now. Actually, I was sent to a GI doctor last week that was supposed to help me with a problem that's not being addressed and being helped. And there's been some angst with that, where they're trying to say that I have like an alcoholic liver instead of my liver has been, polluted by these chemicals that we have absolute proof. Yeah, they've been trying to find somebody to say that for me, and I've caught on to that. And I just come in and say, you can't release my records without me looking at them. I have a right. HIPAA's for me. It's not for you. And so I thought maybe after we filed, they would stop doing that and start being more truthful, and they weren't. Even last week, a couple days before Christmas, I do celebrate Christmas, so it's kind of against my religion for someone to not share peace and goodwill with me, but they did not. They told me I could not see the doctor unless I filled out the form. And so I did. I opted out legally. Like, they gave me this legal HIPAA form where they say, they recrafted the statements where they say, we can re-release to whoever I want, you know. And I said, no, I'm opted out of that, and said there will be no re-release without my consent. I have to see what you're writing, you know. And then they basically pulled me up to the window again and said, you can't see the doctor until you sign our form how it is. I said, nope, because HIPAA's for me, not for you. I'm not releasing my rights to you. And I can talk to your doctor then. And they said, well, we're going to say that you refuse to be treated. I'm like, oh, that's a lie. And I recorded the whole thing. So if they tried to do it, she said, I have all of that. And that's how these things have gone for a while. And that's just one very small example. And I am disappointed that now we're before the court. And I told them that. I am disappointed that now we're before the court and you're still doing this. You know, you're still
why would they be doing? Why would your own doctor be willing to not show you what he wrote about you and release it to parties unknown? What's their...
Well,
how is that protecting your rights? How's that protecting your rights?
Because they're contracted by which this is why we're doing the RICO. This is the part that is the most heinous to me. Yes, it's awful that we were poisoned, but it's most heinous that someone's going to other lengths to, you know, hide all of this, corrupt all of this, and infiltrating other businesses, which is what RICO is. When you infiltrate into other industries, and, you know, it's kind of like mafia-type activity, and that's where RICO is. So this is the whole example of why we're before the court and why we took it this far and why we're willing to do it ourselves. Because, I mean, we can't even go to the doctor and get what we need, even though we pay for insurance, even though we have an insurance policy. But what happens is your doctor is on a contract with the insurer. And the way they're putting these HIPAA forms before us that say you can re-release, blah, 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 they have a team of lawyers that are putting things before our doctors. And our doctors, if they fight it, then they get their money taken back from all of the people who are insured. And in Oklahoma, we only have one ACA insurer. All the rest of them have left the state. They said, no, we're not going to do this to these doctors. We're out of here. And there's only one. Like, we only have the choice of the one. So the doctors don't get paid by the one that is carrying all of the physicians. So this is, again, the RICO, and that's why we're before the court. Yes, it's awful, and maybe it came from the industry, but the way it's infiltrating and continues to infiltrate into our lives.
Well, do you think that this mandate, revoking this mandate, will help your case?
Do you mean the Obamacare thing? I
yeah.
don't know what you mean.
Yeah, the revoking of the mandate in this tax bill.
I don't know.
Because do you think that might allow other insurers to come into your state?
I don't know. I've wondered what that's about. I'm not sure yet.
Mm.
I don't know if that's because we had a right to bring that before the court because we're not under ERISA anymore, and Obamacare did allow us those rights. If you're under ERISA through the old employer part, that has to go differently the way the laws were set up. So I don't know what to think of that yet. I don't know if that's a positive thing or a negative thing. I'm trying to sort through that myself.
Well, let me ask you about this HIPAA statement. Do you think that's standard for them to say that they can release it, that these are the, how should we be reading when, you know, you go to the doctor? I have to admit, I don't really spend much time. I'm like, okay, these are HIPAA laws, and I'll sign off on it. Do you think that's standard where they say we don't have to give you the document and we can release it to anybody we want?
I know with us that's become a standard, and I've learned to watch out for it. But for a long time, I trusted. I trusted my physician's office. I trusted my doctor to do what's best for me, to put the patient first, to not harm me. But I have found that those things are not the norm.
Wow.
And at least in the regular marketplace, I guess some people, go outside and pay cash for other, people that have gotten mad and left the big group and are finding a way to make it on their own. But I can't afford that. All of our kids were sick. We were traveling traveling out of state to get them care. We gave everything we had to keep everybody alive. We ended up having to forgo our house that we had for over, we had a mortgage for over 20 years that we had paid on. We had equities, and that was poisoned. So we've had to rely on the system that we're supposed to be able to rely on, and we've had to learn how it has been corrupted, and it is actually part of what is harming us, unfortunately.
Wow. That is stunning that this is what's happening. I mean, I actually was mentioning, just as you called, that I think that part of the big takeaway on this tax deal is not the tax relief that the billionaires get, but I think it's going to really be about Anwar. They snuck in the Anwar drilling into the tax bill, so now they're going to be drilling in Anwar, which nobody's been allowed to touch every time anybody wanted to go up there. Big, huge protests among people, but they've snuck in the Anwar drilling into this tax relief bill. So now they're drilling. And, I just read that the articles that you suggested, you sent me that link about our children's, what's it called? Our Children's Trust. And that is
you
really...
mean the Juliana versus USA? That one?
Yes. And it's been pushed back to February 5th, 2018. It was supposed to be heard December 17th, and the Trump administration pushed it back. So it makes me wonder how it'll be. This is going to be very interesting to see how the courts respond to these cases moving forward, considering that both the Congress and the president passed a bill that says we're encouraging you to drill, baby, drill. So it's going to be very interesting to see where we go on all of these. Because if their case moves forward on February 5th, your case will have a lot easier chance of moving forward, I should think.
Well, and if that's what it takes is for more of us to say, hey, my hand's up too, this is happening too.
Yeah.
To help move those things along, that's what it takes.
That is what it takes. And actually, that's exactly
others who are out there have to do it too and not be afraid. And it is scary. And you never know how it's going to turn, and that it might turn back against you. But, we've already lived through a lot of that. We've seen it turn back against us and not help us.
Do you have any of your neighbors joining in or saying, hey, if you guys do get through this, we're going to do it ourselves?
We have other people who have said they would like to join a class, but we're waiting to see how that would pan out, if they will even, allow us to proceed as a class.
Wow.
There are pieces of ours that, are different than some people, because we're like the lady from Crestwood, Illinois, who, we had the first reports, and we're the ones that went forward, so we're the targeted.
Wow. Well, Erika, we have about 15 seconds left. Thank you for calling in. You've been listening to Erika Dugan of Oklahoma. Put your courage feet on. It takes courage to do this, but we can do it. It's up to us to save our planet and our country. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks, Erika, for calling in.
Sure. Thank you.